Hey, this is another installment of Catching Up. I'm Sam.
I'm Chris.
I'm Chris.
And this week we've got Jim Zub and Djibril Morissette-Phan. They're on the show to talk about their latest book, Glitterbomb, the Fame Game, out in comic book stores everywhere on Wednesday, February 28th. So, Jake, you started listening to the Dillinger Escape Plan, and then they broke up.
Yeah.
That's the big takeaway I'm getting from.
Well, they had a mutual agreement that the end of 2017, that was it. 20 years, that's it.
Cool.
And I started listening to them in January.
Jake was like, perfect time to start listening.
My friend at work, he played a couple songs, and I never really listened to him. And I was like, who the fuck is that? And he's like, oh, it's the Dillinger Escape Plan. I was like, Jesus Christ. And then like pretty much the only band I listened to in 2018 for real is them, just like nonstop. And yeah, they're not a band anymore.
Art isn't truly appreciated until.
I guess.
I mean, to be fair, basically the same thing happened with the Beatles.
Yeah.
You didn't start listening to them until they had broken up.
That's true.
Yeah.
I didn't start listening to them
For like
until like
20
71.
I didn't say right.
Yeah.
I didn't say it was a perfect analogy.
But no, the lead singer's got a bunch of side projects, and hopefully he's going to be touring with one this year.
You know who's got a project?
Who's got a project?
Jim Zub and Djibril Morissette-Phan.
Ooh.
And they're coming back on the show this week to talk about Glitterbomb, the Fame Game, out in comic book stores and Comixology on Wednesday, February 28th. But let's let them talk about it. And joining us for his fourth appearance on the show, he is our... Jim, you are tied with Alex DeCampi for most appearances on this whatever the hell we are.
Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, so... He's here to talk Glitterbomb, the Fame Game, out in comic book stores and Comixology on Wednesday, February 28th. You know, the fifth volume of, by the time this thing posts, the fifth volume of Wayward will be out in comic book stores and book stores everywhere. And there's a little indie book he does that comes out every Wednesday up through April called The Avengers.
Yeah. Things are a little different from last time we talked, I guess.
Yeah. First off, I got to say congratulations.
Thank you.
At the time this thing posts, every single issue, I'm probably jinxing it, jeez. But for at least the first couple issues of Avengers No Surrender has sold out the week of. And you just got the nod to write the champions.
Yeah, it's been crazy. The weirdest thing was last time we talked was, I want to say August.
Yeah.
And so I had already been working on Avengers since... I started working on Avengers in January. So I'd been working on it for 8 months, but I couldn't tell anybody.
Damn.
Yeah. It was ridiculous. So
we were talking off mic earlier. You've been outside of like lettering proofs and that sort of thing. You've been done with Avengers since what, October at this point?
Yeah. So the way it ended up working in terms of the structure for the Avengers thing, the initial idea came out in December 2016. That Tom said they wanted to do this weekly. They had this idea for this weekly thing that would lead up to the Avengers Infinity War, synergy in terms of advertising, and that we would combine all the Avengers books at that point into a potential weekly. We came together for a writing summit at the Marvel office in early February of 2017, and then built the whole thing over the next, during that jam session, we did most of it, but then did all the kind of granular stuff over the next couple of weeks. And by March, we were putting a script out, the three of us. So it's Mark Waid, Al Ewing, and I. We're putting out a script every 2 weeks. So
Damn.
Yeah, it was while I was doing my regular Uncanny Avengers issues, while I was doing Glitterbomb and Wayward and Dungeons and Dragons and everything else I was up to. And so it was great. I mean, it's an amazing opportunity, and it's been tons and tons of fun. But with that schedule, we were on the original schedule. Later on, Tom Brevoort, my editor, he would tell us that he built a really big buffer because he assumed that stuff would start coming in late. And we only missed one deadline out of 16, and that was literally the last issue, and that was because of New York Comic Con.
Yeah. That's impressive for starters.
Yeah. So we basically, it wasn't even really missed. Like, we told him we were heading towards New York Comic Con, and all of us were pretty burned out and exhausted. And to be 100% honest with you, I kind of wanted to relish that last issue because I realized we were coming to the end of it. Mm-hmm. And so we asked for an extra week just to sort of really kind of ease out and finish it off. So Tom would tell us later that we had something like 9 weeks of buffer that he had assumed we would need, and that we would be writing right up until Christmas. And we finished the week after in New York. So
is that why you and Stacy went back to Japan just to like celebrate?
Yeah, I mean, that was part of it. Like, once the opportunity came up to go to Japan to do Tokyo Comic Con and all this, any sort of anything holding me back at that point was like, screw it. I really want to get away and enjoy and celebrate, because it had been a heck of a year and tons of productivity that for the longest time we couldn't tell people about. Yeah, it was a wild time, but it's been nice. So, I mean, there's still a lot of work to be done, because the book is heading off to the printer, 4 weeks ahead of whatever's in stores. So while you guys are reading issue 3, when we read this, like it came out this week, we're proofing like issue, 7 and 8 to go out the door, and 9 is on deck sort of to go out the door next week. So,
jeez.
Yeah.
We'll pivot to the creator-owned stuff in a second, but I did want to ask, kind of in the abstract, Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, the subject of a certain multi-million-dollar flick coming out in about 4 months.
Yeah.
We've certainly talked what Japanese culture means to you, and having to get those big printer-sized translations of manga and that sort of thing. I guess to pivot it to the Cape and Cowl stuff for a second, what do the Avengers as an abstract mean to you?
That was actually kind of one of the fascinating things when we sat down to brainstorm this. We were like, okay, this is kind of the end of an era of the Avengers. We're sort of putting a cap on a lot of stuff that's happened in the Avengers books over the last few years. What does it mean to us? That was one of the big questions we had to sort of sit there and kind of answer for ourselves, was, the big picture ideas of, a threat that individuals could not handle, that's something that we have to band together. People have to band together. The joke of our writers have to band together to try and tackle this ridiculous, epic task. And what that means, the selflessness of putting yourself out there for other people, with other people, and trying to really make the most of each other's skills and build on, what each person can offer to the whole. And so that was one of those symbolic kind of things where we were really trying to plug away and make sure that the characters we had something to contribute, that they had, an emotional core to them. One of the most difficult things with having so many characters, I mean, we literally have 25 heroes that are part of No Surrender, is that we had to make sure they had a reason to be there and they had things to do, but it didn't just feel like busy work. So we've got these spreadsheets where you're literally like, every issue, okay, what are these characters doing? Okay, where are they going? Okay, is this person injured? Where are they at? What's their current location? Just trying to keep the organizational stuff alone, I think, was kind of mind-boggling. You would be in the middle of it and it all kind of made sense, but when you had the moment to step back, you'd be just like, what are we doing? This is crazy. Yeah. I can't believe how many moving parts there are on this thing.
Well, I mean, you've got, Mark Waid, who did 52, and so I guess there's at least some level of he's got a weekly series under his belt. But yeah, I mean, this is probably, I feel like this is the most ambitious project, and it's been, it's awesome. You guys really hit the ground running with those first couple issues.
Yeah, we're really, really proud of it. I mean, the most kind of amusing thing right now is everyone theorizing on what they think is going to happen, or telling us on social media they know exactly what's going to happen, and telling us with absolute certainty what they think is how it's going to pay off. And I got to laugh, because I'm just like, well, some of it I'm like, okay, I can see. We literally built red herrings into it to make them think that, and they're totally falling for it, hook, line, and sinker. Great. And then there's other parts where they're just like taking some weird detail and extrapolating it out in unbelievable ways that surprise me and kind of delight me, where they're like, wow, they're really digging in depth on this. And I'm kind of excited to see, how their opinions change week by week as we give them more information or we pull back the veil on certain little secrets. But we wanted to make sure that as much as there are mysteries that really work well on a week to week basis, that when the story was all said and done, we had a great Avengers story, a story that's about heroism and coming together, that the mystery itself can't be the sole sum of the story. Otherwise, it loses a lot of impact once it's finished. You know what I mean? So
Absolutely. And just as a quick aside, and I understand that sometimes characters they aren't necessarily like children. You can't necessarily point to your favorite, but if you could, who is your favorite Avenger?
In this story or as a whole?
Just either, both.
It's weird, right? Like, because over the course of doing the book, you end up writing so many different characters, and you start to realize you're getting kind of pulled towards characters that you didn't expect, or you start to really dig in on a character's voice, or really I've always really liked Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch, and they have a nice big role to play in the story, and I'm really proud of what we do with both of them in the story, so I'm excited for people to see how that all plays out. Part of it, the issue 677, which is part 3, is narrated by Quicksilver, and a lot of that narration was stuff I put together, and sort of the big beats that we were building in Uncanny Avengers that we now sort of pay off in No Surrender. So really, really proud of that stuff. As a whole, I think the Vision is a phenomenal character. I've always really enjoyed stories with the Vision. It's weird because it's like, the classic kind of Avengers lineup, if you want to call, like Iron Man, Thor, Cap, and, Ant-Man, Wasp, or these kind of characters that are in the movies really heavily right now. They're wonderful characters, but all of them, except for maybe, I guess, Ant-Man doesn't generally have a regular series running, but everyone else has got a regular book. Like Captain America has his own book, and Thor has his own book, and Iron Man and all that sort of stuff. And so for me, it's like I kind of like the characters that you can only find them in the Avengers for the most part. Mm-hmm. I kind of like that. I like that the team is such a big part of their identity, and I feel like that makes them extra special, that you're able to see that character evolution in the team environment. And so those are the kinds of characters that I really enjoy. I like when, a character can hunker down in a team book and you see them evolve by kind of interacting with other people rather than just a solo title. So a character like the Black Knight, hasn't had a lot of solo kind of stuff, but in the Avengers, he's had some cool stuff happen, or Wonder Man or someone like that. Yeah, in the 90s, he had a solo book for a while, but for the most part, the vast majority of his development has been in the Avengers. And I think that that's one of the reasons why, he's so closely aligned to it for me and why he works so well.
Speaking of team books, if we can pivot to Wayward for a second, that is
sure.
I think the comparison might not be readily apparent, but that is a superhero team book in so many words. It just happens to deal with like Japanese and later Celtic mysticism.
Yeah, it's sort of like one of the things we were doing when Steven and I were brainstorming the characters and putting it together. It was like trying to come up with superpowers that didn't feel like superpowers, you know what I mean? Like we didn't want to have a flying character, and we didn't want to have just like, the big tough character that's tough in a normal kind of way. Like we wanted to sort of make supernatural kind of powers that would have some of the functionality of superpowers but not be as easy to box in. And that was really one of my goals when I was trying to put together the descriptions for the different characters and figure out how they would all interrelate and how their powers kind of worked. And so we get this weird kind of misfit, like Japanese X-Men kind of, group of characters. And it's obviously a ton of fun for us to work on. And I can't wait for people to see what we have planned for the 6th story arc, which is going to be coming out later this year.
With the 5th story arc, without necessarily going deep in spoiler territory, is where I guess there was always elements of fissures or, definitely drama within the team. But this arc in particular, we really start to see big deceptions. We start to also get a sense of the bigger game. We literally see the threads that are kind of connecting everything throughout the Wayward universe, even with the team split between Japan and Ireland.
Right.
Was the goal with this 5th arc always trying to almost go like deeper, more personal, more painful?
Yeah, I mean, obviously in any kind of long form story, you're trying to raise the stakes and make things harder on the characters as you build towards a climax. And that's definitely the case here, just trying to amp it up in a lot of different ways. And the toughest thing is trying to do story stuff that feels, like it makes sense, but also isn't easy to telegraph, that people can't just go, oh, I know where this is headed, and instantly it pays off in the way they expect. So you're trying to surprise people, but in the moment that they read it, they go, oh, that's the appropriate thing. That's what should have happened. I just didn't know that was the way they were going to go. And so you're always trying to sort of play against your own expectations and also try and build a cohesive narrative across the whole thing. Wayward's the hardest thing for me to write because the real world locations require a lot more research. The character cast is complicated, and because it's creator owned, we can kind of do whatever we want. Like it's wonderful, and obviously I love doing it, but there is that weird sense of freedom where you're not getting approval from someone else, and you're like, are we doing the right thing? Is this the right direction? Like, I just need someone to tell me that we're doing it. And when you have an editor, on a work for hire project, they're the approval filter. They're the person, the keeper of the continuity or the, whatever. And even just getting their say-so sometimes can be really quite nice in some ways, or getting that fresh set of eyeballs to look at a story. I'll get my wife, she's a writer as well, and I'll get her to look at some of the Wayward stuff I put together, and I just like, am I nuts? Like, I think this works, just get another opinion just to make sure that I'm not going too far off field.
I'm always kind of fascinated with creator-owned books. A lot of, John Layman knew that Chew was going to run for 60 before issue 1 even hit the stands. You kind of, what's his name? Jason and Jason doing Southern Bastards. They know where their story ends up. You've just hit issue 25, which especially in this, the climate for the industry these days is pretty incredible for creator-owned. How far do you have an ending kind of mapped, or how far do you have Wayward kind of mapped?
Yeah, I have the ending nailed down. I know how the series ends, and that's obviously really important when you're building all these pieces into it. And we've left some flexibility to make it longer or make it shorter, depending on, how things were going or how we felt about it. And so it's something where Stephen and I have always talked back and forth about what we're comfortable with, what we want out of the book, and where we feel we've reached the point where we've satisfied, the character stuff that we want to do as well. There's the market, of course, and the business of the whole thing, and you have to always sort of keep track of, okay, how are sales and is it sustainable? But then there's also that sort of satisfying creative thing of this makes sense, this works, I'm satisfied in that broader way. And it's a bit of a, juggling with both. And especially when you have a co-creator as involved as Steven is, the Japanese location and the character stuff and the art is so integral to what the book is. And so we're, always talking back and forth about kind of those bigger ideas and what I want out of it and what he wants out of it and where we kind of take it through to the finish line.
To kind of change gears with Glitterbomb, you've got it divided into very clear 4-issue, I guess. Wayward's divided into very clear, 5-issue.
5-issue, yeah.
But you
structure junkies, yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, it's like you teach storytelling and that sort of thing. But what was the idea kind of to always? And I remember the last time you were on, you also teased that there was the possibility of a third volume of Glitterbomb. But was there always that kind of
right?
What made dividing Glitterbomb into the 4-issue story arcs much more, branded differently than say Wayward? Was that always kind of a mission statement from jump there?
It was a bit of an experiment. Like I've never done a series of miniseries. Skull Kickers was just an ongoing that we did. 34 issues of Skull Kickers, and that was sort of like this rambling, insane thing that I wanted to do and carry it as far as we could. Wayward has been an ongoing for creator own, and that's kind of unusual in this market. And I know other people that have had success with miniseries and things like that. And I thought, okay, I haven't really thought this way about a story before. I think this can work. Glitterbomb was meant to be, if it was just the 4 issues, the first one, and it worked, great. You have a satisfying payoff in that final issue. But, I had an idea right from the get-go that we could take it further, and that Caden's story in the second arc could be its own thing as well. And that we have another, I would like to do a third one with Marty, the young kid, for the third Glitterbomb if we get the chance to do so. And that, if I get my way, that's our, the finale on it. Like that brings it all kind of full circle and satisfies all the things that I want to sort of say about fame and failure,
If the first volume of Glitterbomb kind of had this, revenge angle throughout, what would you say are some of the themes that kind of guide and set apart the Fame game from its predecessor?
I think that, Red Carpet, which is the first volume of Glitterbomb, is really about this sort of, it's this bitterness looking back upon a career in entertainment. And when you look at what Caden's going through in the Fame game, it's very much that wide-eyed kind of innocence getting pulled into it initially. And that's the contrast between the two. Farrah had been through the grinder already, and her bitterness and frustrations are what sort of drove her on this vengeance trip. And Caden's coming into this thing being just stuffed, right into the deep end from the get-go. In a way, she's not even famous for her skills. She's famous for her proximity to tragedy. And so it's the most awkward kind of fame where you haven't contributed to it. You've just been caught up in it like a, like an elemental kind of thing. You have no way of controlling it. You're just being swept up in it.
There's also kind of between both this and Wayward, we kind of like danced around it a bit, but there is the idea that power comes from sacrifice. Like there is a pain linked to, like in Glitterbomb, it's more so you can get everything you want,
right?
But it comes at a steep price, a bloody price in the case of Glitterbomb. And with, you were mentioning kind of the misfit X-Men element of Wayward. All these characters, a lot of their power kind of manifests from them being
broken or messed up. Yeah, absolutely. That allows them to sort of tap into something, beyond the norm. And that was one of those things that if you look at all the characters have these real tragic, messed up lives, except for O'Hara. And she was, quite powerful. And that was one of the things that Rory sort of brings to the fore in this current story arc, was like, you didn't have to sacrifice the way we sacrificed, but you would have. And she could sort of see it was coming. And that was one of those interesting things where we were able to kind of thematically bring it back and put a bit of a pivot into it.
What do you think it is about those kind of stories, the cost of power, the cost of the burden of dreams, so to speak?
Well, I think that it's something that whatever the actual story that you're telling is, I think people can relate to it very easily. That understanding of you got to give something to get something, like, and the deeper you want to go, or the more fantastic you want something to be, you have to give up for it. If you want to be an athlete, you have to wake up at dawn and you have to practice and you have to work really hard. And that's a very aspirational sort of version of it. But in a lot of other ways, you have to give up all kinds of things. You have to give up social time. You have to give up family time. You have to give up all these other things that people take for granted about their lives. You know what I mean? And I'm not trying to put myself on any kind of level, but when people ask me, they say, well, how do you have a full-time teaching job, at a college and write, 4 comics a month? And I go, well, those things you like to do in the evenings? I don't do those things. You know what I mean? Like, I don't watch very much television. I don't play very many video games anymore. Like, I'm very, very busy because this is where I'm pouring my time and my passion. And this is what is, what I'm dedicated to right now. And I love doing it, and I wouldn't do it if I didn't love doing it, but that's the cost, you know what I mean? And everything has a cost when you make priorities in your life, when you decide to have a kid, when you get a pet, when you save up for, items or take that promotion, whatever it's going to be, you're going to have to pay for it. It's just the characters in Wayward and Glitterbomb are doing it in a much more violent and destructive fashion.
What would you say the the Avengers give up to earn the title Earth's Mightiest Heroes, to kind of make this thing like even fuller circle?
I think that what's interesting about the Avengers is that the vast majority of them don't have families, that they've ended up sort of attaching to each other. I know that thematically we were sort of hinting along that with Uncanny Avengers in my last arc there, where this idea that the characters, the Unity Squad, had been disbanded, but they were still calling themselves that and still helping and fighting because they, in some ways, they didn't have anywhere else to go, but in a lot of other ways, they just learned to rely on each other. That this group of friends, this group of people that came from very disparate parts of the Marvel Universe. You know, you got Dr. Voodoo and the supernatural side of things. You got the Human Torch, formerly of the Fantastic Four. You've got Wasp. You've got Rogue. Like, we're literally this crossroads of X-Men and Inhumans and the Mystic stuff and the Fantastic Four and X-Men and everything else, and they're all kind of working together and trying to find themselves at the same time. And I found that really appealing, you know, to work on and to be able to play into so many different sandboxes of the Marvel Universe all at once. You know, now that I'm taking on Champions, that's one of my earliest goals whenever I'm doing the book. And it sounds so weird to say this, like this is going to be my 4th team book. All I've been doing at Marvel is team books. I've done Thunderbolts, Uncanny Avengers, you know, the flagship Avengers book, and now Champions. And it's really figuring out that dynamic. Like what is the through line for this story? Why should we care? And what can I do to exemplify that and test that theme with these characters, you know? And once I wrap my head around that part of it, the puzzle, you know, figure out how that fits, things start to work well. Like I start to get a feel for how these characters interact with each other, or where the conflicts are coming from, or, you know, how we can move towards these bigger kind of thematic goals.
You know, speaking of bigger thematic goals, I mean, first off, Champions seems like tailor-made, because I think a lot of the conflicts that you've kind of written to are questions of identity. You see that with Rory and the team in Wayward. You see that with more so Caden than Farah. So you see that more with Caden in Volume 2. You see that, I mean, the Champions, if there's any, them and the X-Men would be at the forefront of that. The Champions, you know, all young adults and teenagers. You see that. You even see that with Samurai Jack, you know, being stuck in the far-flung future. What is it about?
Yeah, that sort of that loss of identity, or that, you know, trying to figure out who you are in unusual circumstance.
Yeah, what is it about? I mean, just the concept of identity in a storytelling. I mean, this is a big abstract question, but what is
big abstract questions? Yeah.
What is it about identity that really kind of gets that storytelling? You know.
Well, I think, you know, stories are told in moments where people, you know, important moments in people's lives. There are small stories, you know, but if you want to do these extraordinary kind of tales of superheroics or whatever you want to call it, they're big moments, and they're soap operatic in that sense. But it's about making big changes. It's about making big sacrifices. It's about doing things differently, or trying to find, you know, something better. And so the Champions are a group of, you know, young heroes who have been thrust into responsibilities probably far beyond their years, while, you know, and they feel a weight of responsibility for a changing world, but they're still trying to figure themselves out. Like, they don't know their own priorities. They don't know their own emotional kind of countenance. Like any of this stuff, they're really trying to figure themselves out while being thrust into these incredible kind of conflicts. And so, you know, it's a real classic coming of age sort of story theme, but I think you can have a lot of fun with that. You can make it, you know, bombastic and adventurous. You can make it heartbreaking and engaging all at the same time. You can have all these different characters interrelating. One of the most difficult things, I was talking to Tom Brevoort, my editor, about it. I tend to just like want to draw more and more characters into the fold. Like with Uncanny Avengers, man, we had so many characters by the end there, because we had so we had you know, Synapse and Rogue. I had Wasp, Human Torch, Scarlet Witch, and Quicksilver, and that's 6. And then we threw in the Beast and Wonder Man, so that's 8 characters that you're trying to keep, you know, rolling forward all at the same time and make them give them enough page count, give them enough things to do in the series that you don't feel like they're bystanders in any of it. And with Champions, we've got 7 on the team right now as we launch. And I could easily have pulled in 2 or 3 more and sort of had to stop myself because I just realized, oh man, this is getting unwieldy. First of all, what kind of threats can I put up against this sheer number of heroes that's going to be viable? You know, that's one of the most difficult things. Once you throw that many heroes at something, you're like, what is this, Galactus every time? What are we doing here?
Just like one poor like lone sentinel. He's like mutants, and then they just like kick the shit out of him.
Right. That's why we had like Graviton and the Juggernaut, you know, fighting the Uncanny Avengers. You're just like big, huge threats that we can, you know, kind of focus everyone on.
What is it about? You had kind of alluded to, you know, certainly everyone's, you know, Black Knight and I'm trying to think of other obscure Avengers. Jack of Hearts. Anybody remember?
Oh
that
man, Jack of Hearts. Tigra,
yeah.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, if we want to go obscure, there's all sorts of awesome ones on the fringes of things.
Yeah, Star Fox if you're an 80s.
Yeah, Star Fox, man. See, that was when I was collecting the Avengers. That amazing, I think Roger Stern story, the one where the mansion gets trashed and the Masters of Evil just totally kick their butts. I was collecting the book at that point, and I was obsessed with it.
Yeah, I mean, that was... Well, shoot. I mean, I'm trying to think. Was that called No? It wasn't called No Surrender.
No. I think it was. It didn't have they didn't name story arcs the way we do now. So I know it's in collection. I want to say Under Siege or something.
Yeah, that's it.
I think that might be what it's called. Yep, it's called Under Siege. Whew.
Yeah.
Look at that. It's almost like I have to remember this stuff.
Part of the job.
Right?
But what is it about like juggling that many plates and making sure that everybody gets their due, even the C and D string?
Well, I actually really enjoy it. I enjoy the fact that you're never at a shortage of having things for people to do. Like even if I just have each character do a handful of things each issue, that can fill up the page count. I just got to make sure it's entertaining stuff, not just busy work, you know? So it's like, okay, what is changing? What are we saying? What is this scene? You know, when I break down an issue, I'm really breaking it down over an arc. Oh, these are the major events that are going to happen. Here's the cliffhangers. Here's the whatever. But then even within that issue, I'm breaking it into scenes and justifying those scenes. Like how many pages does it take for, you know, Wanda to break up with Simon? Like how many pages does it take for, you know, these characters to have this tension or this argument or this fight, you know, and make sure that people are getting their money's worth. Like I feel really weirdly precious about that. Like I want the page count. I want the book to fly by in the sense that you're swallowed up in it and you're engaged, but I don't want you to feel like I'm coasting, you know, like when you read these No Surrender issues, they are jam-packed, you know. The first issue is 30 pages, and it feels like it can barely contain it, you know, because there's so much going on. And that stuff makes me happy. I like that we're able to bring a lot of different elements into play and show off a lot of big, flashy visuals and action, but also some little character moments as well, that we're not, you know, trying to balance all those ingredients.
You know, I don't quite know how many pages it takes for Scarlet Witch to break up with Wonder Man, but I can tell you it only takes one to break our hearts.
Well, you know, that's one of those weird things. Like when you're abstractly figuring out the beats of an issue, you're sort of like, okay, this has got 4 pages, and then you sit down to write it, and you're just like, oh man, like I could go even more in depth, and I could stretch this out, or I could be very terse about it. It's fascinating reading. I do so much comic reading for research, particularly lately because I've got so many different projects on the go. Like one of the tough parts about doing a book like Uncanny Avengers is you want to know those characters. So you got to read up on Human Torch and Dr. Voodoo and Rogue and all these characters. You can't read all their appearances, of course, but you're trying to hit the high spots and really understand them and make sure that you have their voice. And now with the Champions, man, so many of those characters have solo books. So you got Miles Morales, Spider-Man, you got Kamala Khan, you know, Ms. Marvel, you got Riri Williams in the Iron Man book, and, you know, Totally Awesome Hulk, and even I'm rereading the Nova stuff from the past few years. Like all these characters have got dozens of issues underneath them. You know, Vision in the Visions book, like trying to read them all and put it all in your head, like, okay, that's what these characters are all about, or that's what they feel like, or this is what's important to them, and then try and push that story forward to the next point. But you end up reading about a lot of older comics, particularly when I was reading for Uncanny Avengers, and you see how different pacing is. You see how, like the Lee and Kirby era, Stan would do stuff on one page that nowadays we would take 6 pages to do. You know what I mean? Like in one panel, he would have the characters have a quick little argument and an interaction, and then they're off to the next scene. And we'll spend like 3 pages on that same kind of moment because there's just different priorities and different storytelling techniques going on. Most people don't realize, like, the original Galactus story, which introduces the Silver Surfer and Galactus, and the world is threatened and nearly destroyed, and they stop him, and the Watcher shows up. That's 3 issues. It's 3 issues in the original Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it would be 16-part story, right?
And it would be like, you'd get Alex Ross covers for every single one, and
right.
5 variants.
Yeah, it's just a very different, kind of a time and a different way of building stories, right? So you read some of that older stuff, and you some of it feels quaint and some of it feels slight, but it's also kind of a reminder that if you're going to use a page, make it worth someone's time, whether it's visually, plot-wise, action-wise, like, why is this page here? Justify its existence. I'm not going to name names, but I'm reading a lot of comics, and some of them I read and I go, geez, I can't believe the amount of pages that they, and I don't want to say wasted, but a lot of pages that they put down that meander or don't seem to move the ball forward as much as I would hope they would, given the amount of time they put into it. So
right. Well,
yeah.
Jim, something we ask everybody, I guess this is your 4th time getting on the receiving end of this one, but
right.
What are you currently geeking out over?
Oh, God. I wish I could tell you I had all sorts of wondrous geeky things. I mean, when I do get a break, do you even remember what I said last time? I couldn't even tell you what I said last time. Was it Overwatch or whatever?
Oh, yeah. The last 2 times was Overwatch.
Yeah. But I still occasionally jump on Overwatch, but really I've been playing a lot of board games. So I get together with my friends, and we don't have time to do hang out as much as we used to, but when we do get together, we try and play co-op board games. So we've been playing quite a few of those, and we have some favorites that are sort of in the rotation right now. So we always play this game called Zombicide, which is a ton of fun, and it's like cooperative, so it's all of us against the board. It's a nice feeling. Even if you lose as a group, and if you win, you feel like victorious, and look, we all did it together. There's another game we play called Mechs and Minions, or Mechs versus Minions, I think it's called, which is a ton of fun. Really enjoy that one. There's another co-op board game we play called Mysterium. Yeah, just sort of mix it up, and it's nice to get people together, and instead of just like go to the movie or stare at a screen together, we're all kind of interacting and collaborating over these games and get to chat and catch up at the same time.
Yeah. I remember last time was it a Play channel or something through, like, I forget if it was through Twitch or YouTube, but you had either appeared on some or had played on some.
Oh yeah, no, we have a D&D game campaign that's going, and so we have episodes of our playcast. We're currently on hiatus just because my schedule is absolutely bonkers, but we have a bunch of episodes banked. We just need to get them edited and posted up on the page. Yeah, it's a ton of fun to be able to get together and do tabletop role-playing game stuff as well. I love that stuff so much. And even though, making stories is my job, doing it for fun is also great, and it kind of weirdly re-energizes me.
Oh, I feel like it, because, I mean, you write the Dungeons and Dragons comic.
Right.
But,
yeah, you'd think I'd be sick of it, but no.
Well, no,
I
feel like being a DM, it requires storytelling, because you're crafting all sorts of prats and pitfalls for our heroes to kind of endure.
Yeah, I think what's really fun about that too is that because no matter how much story planning you do when you're running a D&D game, as soon as the players start to interact with that adventure or that story idea, they're going to bring themselves into it, and they're going to make decisions that will inevitably take you far afield from wherever you were planning. And so you have to have that improvisational quality. You have to be able to go, okay, wow, we're not doing any of the stuff I thought we were going to be doing, but clearly the players are into this, and so that's where we're going to focus our attention, and let's make this fun. And I think that that's a really it's a nice storytelling skill to build up, that ability to improvise, because in real life it happens too. I'm on the phone with my editor, and the big story idea I have suddenly just goes completely out the window. They're just like, oh no, that doesn't work. So and so is doing this, so you can't do that thing you've been planning for months. And you're just like, what? Improvise. Okay, we're going to do this instead. You know what I mean? And, always kind of have a solution that you can somehow mold even in the, in the moments when you weren't expecting you would need to.
Yeah. Oh, look, I guess Mole Man's attacking New York City again.
That's right. What's funny too is I know that people, when they get to the end of No Surrender, they're going to be like, oh, they changed it because people figured out, like guessed what the ending would be or whatever. And I'm just going to continually tell them, we had it written back in October. I swear to you, the ending is the ending that we planned all along. Yeah. All the revelations and all the stuff. If you like it, if you don't like it, it was already locked in. So.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, at this point, because you guys have 3 different artists.
Yeah, there's 3 different art teams that are working on the book. So there's Pepe Larraz, then there's Paco Medina, and then Kim Jacinto. And we're getting literally, art proofs from all 3 artists simultaneously. And that was tough for continuity because while Pepe would be drawing like issue 3, Kim would be drawing issue 7 or whatever. And so you'd be like, okay, at that point in the story, this character's injured. He's going to have bandages here and that character's, but they haven't drawn the injury yet. You know what I mean? Like, so you're trying to keep it all cohesive. We had some rules where if anyone drew a location, no matter what point of the story it got drawn in, that was now the design and everyone had to refer back to it. You know what I mean? And stuff like that, just to try and keep the thing under control.
Sure. Well, Jim, anything? I mean, you've got a lot on your plate, but anything you wanna plug before we release you back to the wilds of Canada?
The wilds of Canada. We've got some really fun stuff coming. So it feels weird. There's like 2 projects announced in the last 2 weeks. So the next Dungeons & Dragons miniseries will be starting in April, and it's called Dungeons & Dragons Evil at Baldur's Gate, and it picks up where our previous miniseries left off, Frost Giant's Fury. But it's also meant to be like a real good jumping on point. So it's 5 separate stories about 5 different characters. You get a little more background on our heroes. You get to some real classic D&D kind of adventure stuff. And we get to do some things that have never been shown in the comics for D&D before. Like, one of the things I love about Dungeons & Dragons is it's not just generic sword and sorcery. There's some real setting-specific funkiness that, to me, has always felt like D&D. And I've never seen that in the comics before. The comics have always been very kind of down the middle. Oh, we're going on a quest. Oh, we're going to save these people. And I feel like we've done enough stuff now and we've established these characters to a point where we can kind of go a little wild and do some things that, like in the second story arc, we dragged the group to Ravenloft, which had never been shown in the comics before. And it's this, nether dimension of evil and all this kind of stuff. And so we've got some other fun things planned in a similar vein where we're able to showcase some stuff that's, I think, is really integral to D&D, but the fans haven't really seen, visualized in this way before. So I'm really stoked about that. And then the same month, I've got my first issue of Champions coming out, and that's issue 19, starting a new story arc that's going to be called A Wider World. The group is going to be bigger than before, so we lost young Cyclops, but we've gained Riri Williams and Nadia Van Dyne, and they're going to be globe hopping, doing some really cool stuff, lots of inter-character drama, lots of big conflict and villainy, but then some of the kind of themes that have already been in the Champions, this idea of trying to change the world and make the world a better place and not just punch out bad guys, but also try and save people and, enrich their lives, having some of those thematic things at the core of it as well, while balancing that with some classic superheroics. And
then, of course, new Avengers book every week through April.
Every week. Yeah, it's kind of mental. Yeah. It's a little mind-boggling because by the time the issue comes out, the next day they're like previewing the next one, and then we get reviews rolling in from social media, and then we get tons of questions that are hitting us, on my Facebook or on my Tumblr or on my Twitter. And so it's this amazing kind of relentless ride right now, and we're only 3 weeks in at the time we're recording this. So we're not even a quarter of the way through. I can't kind of believe it. Once we hit that, downward slope as we hit the second half, it's going to be just a wild roller coaster.
You had kind of alluded that you and Steve have got Wayward coming later in the year, or returning later in the year. You don't have to go into specifics, but do you have a ballpark of, when we can expect an issue 26?
I think it's going to be June. It was going to be May originally, but what ended up happening is that we're doing artwork for the Wayward board game, and so that sort of intruded on. You guys know we're doing a board game, right?
I do now.
Oh, sweet! Yeah, we're doing a co-op board game that's being published by IDW Games, and it's being designed by John Gilmore, the guy that created Dead of Winter. And so we're super stoked about that. We're really deep into the production process on that. So Steve's doing a huge slew of new artwork for cards and character sheets and stuff for the board game. At the same time, last year, Wayward got optioned by Manga Entertainment, and they're partnering up with an anime studio trying to get their financing in order to see about doing a first season of an animated Wayward. And so we've been involved in some of the pre-production on that. And so it was just a thing where we were originally going to come back in April, and then it was like, okay, there's just no way, the schedule's too crazy. Then May, and we're like, no, we can't. The deadlines are too ridiculous and things are too bonkers. But now I feel confident that we're going to be back in June. So Steve's already got all the covers done for the next arc. So we can start doing solicitations and make sure that we're going to be on time and organized.
Ah, man, that's between a board game, an anime, or you've got the Avengers gig, you've got Champions, you've got everything is coming up Zub.
I have a day job. That's the most insane part of all. This year's extra weird, I gotta say. Normally, when I come into the school and I'm teaching and stuff, I don't talk about the comics that much. Like, there are some of the students in my program, they're comic book fans, and they know that I write comic books. But for the majority of people, just sort of, it's not a big thing. They know me as an art instructor, and I'm there teaching them, 1 or 2 classes a week or whatnot. But this year's everything's been a little bit crazy. So the school actually did a big profile on me about the Avengers, and they put it like on the front cover of the student newspaper, and then they had it on the website, and they put up these big information screens around the campus, and they had that cycling as one of the slides.
Oh my God.
So I would go to get coffee, and my face would be on this huge projection screen by the coffee shop on the campus. And it was like really weird. It's
like Minority Report.
Yeah, I go to staff meetings and a bunch of people are asking me about the Avengers. And so I can't, not that I was hiding it before, but now there's just no escape in that regard. So it's been very different and kind of a wild ride there too.
No surrender.
Yeah, no surrender. There's no surrender.
And of course, when I say this in the best possible way. Glitterbomb, I didn't think it could get darker than the red carpet, but honest to God, I feel like the Fame game is, and again, in the best possible way, the darkest, meanest thing that you.
It is the meanest thing that I can put on paper. The weirdest part, by nature, I'm a pretty optimistic person. So, like, whipping myself up into a frenzy to write an issue of the Fame game was not fun. Like, it was just like, okay, I got to get this out. Like, I don't know if you know this, the world's a little weird right now.
Yeah.
And so there's lots of fodder there.
You got Justin Trudeau. We're the ones stuck.
Right? There's a lot of fodder there to sort of feed into that threshing machine of darkness. So, that's kind of where my head's at with some of it, where I'm just like, oh man. And the weirdest part was, we were wrapping up the Fame game production, and then all this Harvey Weinstein stuff and all the Hollywood stuff really hit just like a powder keg. It's gone off, and everyone's sort of pointing. We've gotten some incredible, coverage and reviews of Glitterbomb because thematically, this corruption and sickness in Hollywood, we were like, a year ahead of the real peak of craziness on that front. And so, yeah, that's been super strange.
Well, I remember like the back matter in really both volumes, but especially with the red carpet, speaking to the the sex abuse and that sort of thing. Like that was obviously coming from a very real place and very, very painful. So yeah, if there's ever a time for a book like and you see it with the proliferation of like social media, more so with the Fame game in particular. Like if there was ever a time for a book like Glitterbomb, it's like right now.
Yeah, it's been weirdly, obviously we could never have planned this kind of a thing. My agent's really happy because he's, it's sort of weird to think that there's a Hollywood guy going around Hollywood trying to sell a story about how terrible Hollywood is. Yeah. But it's that kind of market right now.
Yeah. Well, shoot, I guess is that all the again, you've got a day job and you've got all these pans on the stove. It's
pretty wild.
Is that so? Do you keep the day job to kind of just like pay it forward? Do you like having that regularity?
I'm not trying to sound crass about this. Like comics are really tumultuous and hard, and right now things are going amazing. Like I had a banner year last year, and this year looks like it will be just as strong, if not stronger. But you can't make assumptions about that. And so, first off, I love teaching. It's very comfortable for me. I really enjoy working with students, and I love watching their skills grow. But there's also a huge amount of stability built into that job, and it allows me the freedom to be able to pick the kind of writing projects that will exemplify the skills I want to show. So I can turn down stuff without any fear because I know the bills are going to get paid. You know what I mean? And so it allows me to really be more selective about what I'm doing. So when people say, oh man, this project's perfect for you. Oh, I can really see how this is going to go so well. It's because I'm able to be more choosy than I would be if I was solely doing freelance, where I'd just be like, well, more is better.
Yeah. Damn. It helps fuel the dream.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Originally when I was doing Skull Kickers in 2009, 2010, when we were ramping up production on that, I had a deal with my wife where I said, okay, any money that I make in freelance, I can reinvest in my creator-owned stuff, And so that way it was like its own little microcosm. And if it ever fell apart, I would joke around. I said, I'd just kick it out the airlock and watch comic books float away quietly into space or whatever, because the teaching job was its own kind of separate thing, and it was safe, and comics were its own sort of thing, and it was, not going to poison the well on our financial stability. But now, both of them are going really well. It's just it's a whole different kind of ball game. It feels a little strange at times because I just got used to. There were points in time where I would be making money in freelance and just literally turning around and basically signing that check equivalent over to the artists that were doing my creator-owned books, And so you just sort of be like, well, it's not really Marvel money. It's more like that's now artist money. It just goes over here, in one hand out the other. But now things are in a better spot on that front. Wayward holds its own and Glitterbomb holds its own, and we're able to just do more, which is kind of exciting.
Yeah. Kind of refills the war chest.
Yeah, it's cool. And it also means that, whatever, I promised my wife I wouldn't do another creator-owned thing until Wayward or Glitterbomb wrapped up, because I couldn't possibly hold another one on, on my shoulders right now. But, there's a lot of plans for different things, and I've got story ideas that have been sort of bubbling along, and I feel confident now that one of the nice things is that I can go to an artist, or I can, whether it's an artist I've worked with before or not, and I can say, look, this will be published. You know what I mean? Like, we can find a publisher for this without trying to be, like a jerk or whatever. It's like, they will respond to me, nice. When I send an email. Like, I can send a pitch and we will get a response quickly, and we can figure out the best publisher to work with to release a thing. So let's make something cool.
Yeah, you've got clout, man. Like you said, you had a banner year, and again, you kicked off the year I mean, I know you'd been done since like October, but you've kicked off the year writing the Avengers every week, and it's been it's been received well.
Utterly surreal. It's been a wonderful, wonderful ride, and honestly, our team is phenomenal. Like Mark and Al are phenomenal writers and very giving, and we've got very different strengths, and so it makes the story stronger. Tom and Alana, our editorial team, they're amazing, and they're that perfect balance of like, giving good feedback, but also letting us kind of run wild in the areas that we feel passionate about. The art team's phenomenal. Like Pepe Larraz and Paco and Kim, like they're doing banner work of their career, all three of them. And, in some cases, just jaw dropping. I've written scenes and then I get the artwork back and I can't believe that that's what, we've been able to create together. So when you've got that kind of an amazing team all sort of working together, Mark Brooks doing these just phenomenal covers that are just grabbing attention, the Marvel team pushing it, and all of it just put together. I feel so fortunate that we've been able to build this thing together.
Well, and I at the risk of getting my nose brown, you have earned your spot as part of that superstar team too, Jim.
Honestly, I don't and I'm not trying to fish for compliments either. When we came together to do this story building thing, when I went to the Marvel office, I was so clearly the least experienced, and I was so nervous sitting down at that boardroom table and starting to put ideas out. And the most scary thing is not even throwing ideas out. It was when we would start to disagree. And we've honestly never, I know this is going to sound so idyllic, we've never had a major argument on this project. Like everyone's really been quite in sync about what we want to do. But even the minor stuff, when we would discuss little details, the first time you have to tell Mark Waid, no, I don't think so. Like it's just bizarre. Like just how did this happen? You know what I mean? Yeah. Or you're tweaking dialogue, or you're, hey, I think there's a better way to do this, Al Ewing. You're just like, what? This is madness, How could this possibly be? And yet, we all, that's what makes it so great, is that we're all able to bring different ideas into it. There was one section where we were outlining and trying to figure this stuff out, and we literally just had a small gap, and I just said, in the outline, I was just like, something exciting happens here. My brain is full. I don't know what that's going to be, but we can transition between these two parts of the story with something really exciting, and having the faith that between the three of us, we would figure it out,
Yeah. Well, again, it's been received very well and for good reason. And, Jim, it's always good having you on the show, man. Thank
you very much.
It's the fourth time you've been on, and honest to God, you are I've said this on the record on the show multiple times. We never originally intended to be Comic Press. We kind of, thanks to contacts and happenstance, we got on press lists because we would talk about comics inevitably. And you were the guy that kicked it all off. You were the first interview in a now years long, year and a half. How long have we been interviewing comic creators just steadily, Jake?
Oh man.
I want to say November of 2000.
25 years.
20, yeah.
Just feels like 25 years.
Yeah, with this administration. Yeah. I want to say November of 2016.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we've been it's because it was before the election.
Yes.
So it would be November of 15.
Jesus.
Because it was end of the year. We were talking volume 2 or 3 of Wayward.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you lead the charge there.
Well, that's kind of awesome. Yeah, it's sort of wild. It's funny too, because when you're in the midst of doing the production on these books, your goal is just to get them out the door and get them off to the printer. And it's only when you look in the rearview mirror and you go, oh man, we made 4 or 5, 6 books or whatever. How did this happen? You know what I mean? When we were on I can't believe at some point they're gonna make some kind of 16-issue omnibus of this thing, this lap killer of a book that we're gonna have by the time this thing finishes. And I'm gonna look at it and go, oh, that was a year of my life, that we spent building this monstrosity, and I hope people really love it.
Yeah. I mean, again, you have earned your place among the comic book pantheon.
Oh, thanks, man. That's very kind of you.
So yeah, again, Glitterbomb, the Fame Game, Wednesday, February 28th. Wayward Volume 5 in comic book stores now. Look to a new Avengers book every week. Look to, Dungeons and Dragons, and check out Jim's IDW, Samurai Jack, or, his Conan Red Sonja while you're at it too. There's plenty of awesome Jim Zub books out there, and Jim, thanks again for coming on the show.
My absolute pleasure.
And coming back on the show, we have Djibril Morissette-Phan. He's the artist and co-creator behind both volumes of Glitterbomb. You've also, seen his work over with Marvel with, Ultimates, all new Wolverine. Djibril, thanks for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
So at this point, you and Jim have 8 issues of just Glitterbomb alone under your belts. How is that experience been, and how has your collaboration and your creative process with Jim changed since Glitterbomb first started?
To be honest, it hasn't really changed that much since we started working together. Since I think we really just hit it off, and we really started working on the first issue of the first volume, and then it really went well. So we just kept pretty much the same workflow for the rest of the series. So yeah.
Oh, okay. Lightning in a bottle there. I remember the last time you were on, you were saying with that first volume, because it was for that first volume. God, that's been about a year now. You were saying that what you really enjoyed drawing in that first volume was the quieter moments. Was that something that continued into the Fame game, or was there something else that you really like to lean into with this volume?
No, I'd say it's still that's what I love about the series, is that we tackle horror and stuff like that, but we still focus very much on our characters and how they interact with each other, and the quiet scenes are very important. And that's what I love about that project, because I've had a chance to do since the last volume, I've had a chance to work a bit for Marvel and everything, and that's a lot more action packed and stuff like that. So I like to have this project where I can really flex my muscles in the stuff I really enjoy doing.
And yet you balance it with some of we joke about it with Jim, but it's the honest to God truth. This is the darkest stuff that he's ever written, and I feel like this is the darkest stuff that you've ever drawn. So how do you kind of maintain? And it's all set in beautiful sunny Los Angeles. How do you kind of strike that balance visually?
I don't know. I guess the scripts just tells me how to approach it, because Jim's really good at setting the mood and everything. So I just go with the flow, and we established a mood and a direction with the first volume. So I just felt like keeping that momentum going, and just keep that same mood. And it came pretty natural, I guess.
Well, that's good. As somebody that you've been in comics for only a handful of years, but you would never guess by looking at both the Fame game and you do these gorgeous painted covers for. No problem at all, man. If there's anything about this book that really makes it leap off the stands, because Jake, fellow co-host, has used to work at a comic shop, and we do a lot of comic shows, and the one thing that catches everybody's eye is those painted covers. And how is it kind of balancing both, more traditional penciling style and then, doing the painting work?
I love having the chance to do both, because I feel like I'd get bored if I had to only do one thing. So to be able to have one project where I can, work in different styles is the best. And doing the covers is, quite frankly, I don't have a lot to do. It's 4 covers for each art, but that's the part I love most, because I don't get to do it a lot. And I've always had that thing I wanted to do, more traditional art and painting and stuff like that. And I've never really had a chance to do it except on my own time. But I was glad to have the chance to do it in some of my actual work. And so that's just fun to be able to have a bit of diversity in what I do.
would you ever, you've got one more volume of the Fame game, you've got your work over with Marvel. Would you ever want to pull an Alex Ross and do something that was top to bottom painted if given the opportunity?
Sure. I don't think I'm at that level yet to be able to take on like a massive project in that style, but I'm planning on going back to school in studio art, so to learn to use those tools more efficiently. So perhaps down the line I'll have the chance to work on some comic projects and be able to use that kind of style. Or yeah, I'd love it.
Yeah. If another thing that I remember from the last time you were on, you come from from studying animation and that sort of thing, and Jim teaches animation, and I'm sure that kind of informs your guys' collaborative process. How would you kind of describe your process, say, different than working with, say, Tom Taylor or any of the other Marvel writers versus working alongside Jim and someone that has that kind of shared academic background?
Well, Jim was the first. Like Glitterbomb was my first big project, and Jim was like one of the first pros that I really created a relationship with. And I feel like the fact that he's a teacher really made it easy for me to learn everything from how the industry works to how the workflow, what the workflow is and everything. So yeah, I feel like I really got lucky to be able to work with Jim like for one of my first projects, because he's really helpful, and it really shows that he's a great teacher. And my relationship with him is probably like I'm closer to Jim than to any of the other writers I've worked with, because it's one of the only one that I've actually met and like discussed the how the project would go and everything. So yeah. And he's one of the first, as I said, with whom I've worked. So, yeah.
Oh, we got to get you. I mean, now that Jim's overdoing the Avengers, we got to get you doing some like. Well, I guess he's doing the Champions now too.
Mm-hmm.
We got to get you out of the X corner and into the wider Marvel universe.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Well, again, your big two work has been with Marvel. I was wondering what were some of your favorite comics growing up, and what were some of your favorite Marvel comics growing up?
I wasn't like a huge comic guy when I was younger. I actually started reading American comics when I was maybe like 17 or 18. But I grew up on like more European comics. I speak French, so I grew up with like French comics and stuff like that. And then I discovered while I was studying animation, I discovered American comics. And when I discovered it, that's what I wanted to do, because like artistically, that I felt that was the way I was naturally drawing, and I felt like my style would be where my style would fit best. But yeah, so I did read some Spider-Man when I was younger, but I was more watching like the TV shows and stuff like that.
So it was mainly Mobius, and I suppose Hergé, who I guess is Belgian, but I mean.
Yeah, well, I was a big fan of Gottlieb. I don't know if you know him. I think he's a French comic artist. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and Tintin and stuff like that was definitely an influence.
Absolutely, man. Well, it was also, I kind of like danced around this earlier. You really capture some of the most horrific stuff in that Image is putting out these days. It was interesting. We had Declan Shalvey on last month, mm-hmm. and he's doing Injection. He got to start doing Irish horror comics, but he's not a big fan of horror. So I don't know if that kind of contradiction exists for you as well, or
yeah, exactly. I'm exactly the same way. I know my style fits well within the horror genre, especially because of how I ink. I'm pretty sure like it's the same with Declan Shalvey. His style really fits well for horror stuff, but that's not where my like that's not why what I love most in comics or in any medium. Like in general, I'm not drawn naturally to horror, but like I love doing it, and that's how I got. Like my first comic gig was a zombie book with Brian Pulido. So I guess I I kind of started doing comics within the horror genre, so it makes sense that I continued that way. But yeah, that's not like the natural thing for me.
Well, you had also you had done painted covers for, was it Vampironica?
Yeah, yeah, I did one all cover for that series.
Right, and
I also did like the covers for Phantoma, like a Canadian a book by Chapter House, like a Canadian publisher, and that's also horror. So like I've done a lot of horror stuff because that's what I'm kind of known for.
right. What would you Huh? Well, you do it.
It's so funny because like we always talk to people like you were like Sam was saying with like Declan and stuff like, but you do it so well, you know, like it's just yeah, that's always so funny to me.
Yeah. You could always maybe blend the genres, do like Alien, where you get a little sci-fi, a little horror. You know, you scratch both itches.
Yeah.
Hmm.
What would you say? You know, you were mentioning you were going back to school, getting into graphic art and some of that. What is something you wanted to keep the momentum going with the second volume of Glitterbomb with the same look? But what would you say you want to change up if you had to self-diagnose? What would say be the things you want to change with your own style?
Well, I think I do feel I've changed a bit my style from the first arc to the second one, and I want to keep that that going. And I feel like maybe I'd like to have more details in my work, and like I use more references now than I used before, and I feel like that helped me improve a lot. So that's something I want to keep doing. But yeah, I like the path I've taken with my art for comics, so I want to keep pushing in that direction. And like the exploration will come more in other part of what I do art wise, like painting or stuff like that.
Right. Though, I mean, again, it's all very kind of. I mean, it's very haunting stuff, and I think with this volume, the Fame game, you've got a much more kind of sympathetic protagonist in Caden, a young woman that's very much at odds with herself. Whereas I feel like the first Glitterbomb is very much a revenge story. This is kind of almost like a coming of age story. And you were mentioning that you were changing things up visually. I guess there's a lot more home scenes between Caden and her mom. Was that something that you had kind of pushed for with Jim after coming off the first volume?
Like story wise, I pretty much let Jim write what he feels is the right thing, and I just try to make the best of what I receive in the script. So I haven't pushed for anything, but I think we have had like conversations about what I like to draw, and he knows where I do my best work. So I think he does write in a way that puts like my strong sides forward. But no, I haven't like pushed for any direction in particular story wise for Glitterbomb.
Well, and something I noticed, speaking to both your own strengths and Jim's strengths towards writing you, something that is big about the Fame game and just big about your storytelling sensibilities when it comes to horror. There's kind of a less is more approach with this, more so than there was with the first volume. In the first volume, you would see straight off the bat dudes get like impaled in the head, and in this one, I mean, people still get, fucked up, but they don't get as they don't. You kind of leave it to the reader to imagine how bad or what exactly is going on, and I think that's a real big benefit in this volume.
Mm-hmm.
Was that kind of conscious?
I'm not even sure it was on purpose or it just felt that was the right way to tell that scene, I guess. I don't know. It really came naturally, and I don't think I put that much thinking in when I thumbnail and I plan like how I'm gonna tell the story visually. I really go with how it feels. So yeah, I don't know. It's pretty natural and instinctive, I guess.
Right on, right on. Also, there's almost a cinematic quality to both volumes of
Mhm.
Glitterbomb, and I don't say that just because it takes place with the film industry and Hollywood and all that. But I was wondering what were some of your more specific, visual influences. And again, there's like a cinematic quality, especially with that opening where you see the aftermath of the first volume without necessarily going into spoiler territory for anyone who hasn't read the first volume of Glitterbomb. But yeah, I was just wondering what some of your more specific references and influences were with these stories.
Well, like I'm very influenced by movies, and that's probably like I always loved movies in general, but then when I studied animation, that was like the way we approached storytelling because it was like storyboarding and stuff like that. So naturally, I think I have a very cinematic approach to telling a story visually. But then I did watch a couple of movies just to get inspiration. So like Drive was a big inspiration for me, especially for the first volume. And I don't know if you have seen the movie Dope, but that was a big influence on me for the second volume because if I remember well, it's set in LA, but then it's like younger kids and stuff like that. So it felt like a good reference. And like art-wise, other than movies, I've shifted a bit my my favorite artists that I follow in comics. So I've been very inspired by the work of like John Paul Leon and Tommy Lee Edward, and they have a very cinematic feel to how they approach storytelling, I think.
Yeah, there's kind of like a kineticism there, even in the quieter moments.
Mm-hmm.
Like it feels like it feels like action beats, but even if it's just a conversation, it's very dynamic.
Yeah, and that's really like I really approached those kind of scenes like like if I was putting like a camera in the setting. So it's really like a movie, basically.
Right.
That I set the scenes.
Well, Djibril, that leads me to our signature big question with all, going from influences, but really, what are you geeking out over these days?
My God, I don't know. Like I've kind of stopped reading comics for a while because I was in school. Actually just finished school a couple weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
So I was like very busy with juggling work and school, so I didn't have a lot of time to read comics or watch a lot of movies or TV shows and stuff like that. So yeah, I think like the last comic I read that I really loved was Black Widow.
Oh,
The run with Mark Waid and Chris Samney. And that I loved it, and visually was amazing, but like that's a long time ago, I think.
Yeah, they're already on Captain America now. Okay.
Yeah.
This is something I've asked everybody, and almost everybody in the comic industry really digs this. There are a few exceptions, but have you seen Blade Runner 2049?
No, I actually haven't seen it yet, and like I should have because Denis Villeneuve, the director, is like from my hometown, and so I should support his work more, but I haven't had the chance to see it yet. No. I've heard it's great though.
It is. I mean, if we're talking cinematic storytelling, and especially in those, even in the quieter moments, because Jake, would you call Blade Runner mostly quiet moments?
Yeah, I mean it's mostly quiet moments with some like big booms,
like Glitterbomb.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's gorgeous.
Just less demons and more robots.
Yes,
unless that's what you guys are planning for Arc 3, in which case we have an exclusive scoop. Right here.
No, I don't think there's gonna be robots.
Damn.
One day.
I mean, but yeah, even in terms of like setting and color usage, I mean, it's just it's art, man. It's living art. Had you been a big fan of Villeneuve, with Arrival or
Yeah, I've seen all of his movies. I fell in love with his movies before he even did before he did Hollywood stuff, because he directed a couple of movies here in Quebec, like French movies, like French speaking movies, and they were already great, like Incendie and stuff like that. So I just knew he was gonna be the big deal at some point.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's
Yeah, was it is this Sicario? Is that one of his?
That's,
right?
that's
Yeah,
what it is,
Yeah, that
He did Prisoner as well.
I haven't seen Prisoners.
with Hugh Jackman.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, here's one that everybody. All right. How about The Last Jedi?
No, I haven't seen it yet. Yeah, I know. I'm a bad geek, right?
Huh.
Well, to be fair, Blade Runner 2049 took me forever to see it. I mean, because you got to cut us. You got to.
It's 3 hours.
You got a chunk of time you got to set aside. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the sad part is that I've seen the Fate of the Furious, but I haven't seen Star Wars or Blade Runner.
Well, Fate of the Furious is better than all those movies. So.
Oh, Jake.
I don't even know if I'm joking. I'm joking. Yeah, I'm joking. I had to stop for a second. Oh, Jesus.
Trying to think, was Fate of the Furious just this past year?
Was it?
Am I
oh
going?
my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Shoot.
City dog ears, man.
Yeah, I know.
The best we've got is Paddington 2.
Oh, well, Paddington 2 is amazing. I actually watched the first Paddington. It's on Netflix. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I hear it's good.
It's so good. Yeah, it's amazing.
So I mean, with no video games, no comics, totally understandable. Félicitations votre commission, but the with being finished and everything, or terminé. But the that's my little butchered French there for all our listeners.
Yeah, that was great.
Thanks. Or should I say merci? But oh God, it's terrible. The anything on television or video games that you've been enjoying lately?
I haven't played a video game since high school, so I can't really say about that. But like on television, the last show I've watched is Silicon Valley, I think.
Nice. I'm always fascinated by what guys or gals, we're equal opportunity here, listen in the background while they do art. Are you one of those guys that has to work in complete silence? I know Jason Latour, when he's doing Southern Bastards, is always watching Star Trek for some reason. Yeah.
I'm always listening to podcasts, and I try to keep informed, so I listen to the news and stuff like that. But I need my focus on what I do, so I need to hear. I can listen to something, but I can watch something at the same time as I draw.
So you and Jim have it a lot luckier when it comes to listening to the news, because you guys are both up in Canada. We do. You guys have Justin Trudeau. We don't have that going.
Yeah,
for us.
he has his problems. But I actually listen to a lot of American news because it's just more fun than Canadian news, I guess. But yeah.
I guess fun. That's the first time I've heard our news cycle described as fun, maybe ever.
Well, I don't have to deal with the consequences, I guess. So that's
fair. It's like a sci-fi
It feels
movie.
like a TV show, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're living the Black Mirror, man. Well, Djibril, is there anything else you want to plug while we've got you on?
I don't know. I guess I have. I've released 3 chapters now of it's a comic called Trip, and it's available for free online. So if people go on my Twitter or on my Facebook page, they can see it and download the PDF. And it's basically a graphic novel that I wrote and drew, and that I'm releasing online for free. So people can go check that out.
What was it that first off, is this the first comic work that you've written? And second off, what made you want to release it for free?
Yeah, it's the first time I write something, and that's why I wanted it to be free, because I didn't feel it was maybe professionally written enough that I wanted to charge people. I felt like it was just an experiment for me to, get it out there, and I didn't want to have to deal with a publisher or anything. I just really wanted to have something entirely done by myself. And I'm probably going to print it at some point, like a limited number of copies, and sell it in conventions. But yeah, like, and I like doing stuff for free because I feel like it's my anti-capitalist side that I want to
Nice.
put forward, I guess.
Down with capitalism. Says the man that puts out his podcast on iTunes every week. But are you gonna be at Emerald City next month?
Yeah, I'm actually leaving tomorrow for Vietnam for a month, and I'm gonna go straight to Seattle afterwards, and then I'm gonna come back to Montreal. So it's like a big trip coming up for me.
Right on, man.
Well, I'll be at Emerald City. Yeah.
Yeah, Jake and I will be there too with bells and whistles. So if you guys and you and Jim want to grab beers or Labatt Blue or whatever Seattle has. I guess they have a lot of cider, but you're not a cider guy, are you, Jake?
I'll drink it. I'm not picky. I'm not picky at all.
If you guys, and maybe in that month you're in Vietnam, though I don't blame you because you'll be in Vietnam. If you happen to watch Star Wars or Blade Runner, we'll be able to share notes.
That's like a combined 5.5 hours of.
To be fair, it's like a 20-hour flight.
That's true. Or you could just watch Fate of the Furious over and over and over again.
20 or I guess 10 times.
Is that how? Yeah.
Yeah, it's about 10 fate. You can measure your flight with 10 Fates of the Furious.
Yeah, Fates. Yeah.
Nice. That's our metric here.
Fate of the Fast and Furious movies.
Yeah.
Boy.
But no too fast or too
No.
furious.
No.
I'll take Tokyo Drift over that any day of the week. Anyway, Djibril, thanks again for coming on. And again, Glitterbomb, the Fame game, is out in comic book stores everywhere and on Comixology on Wednesday, February 28th. Get that first volume too. Check out Jibril's website to check out Trip. And again, you can get those issues of All New Wolverine and New Ultimates out in on Comixology and in comic book stores everywhere as well. Djibril, thanks again for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
So, did you guys see any movies at the cinemas this week?
Oh, I did. Oh, who lives in a? I did. It was 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. It was very good. I enjoyed the movie, and I hope Sam Rockwell wins an Oscar. All my favorite parts are spoilers, so I'm not going to talk about them. One in particular is, if I remember correctly, it's a one track, one shot, like the camera's following a character outside a building into the street in another building and then back into that building. Wow. And it's I was sitting there, I was like, oh, this is a moment, and it's not a fun thing that happens, it's a horrible thing that happens, but watching it as a fan of movies and stuff and how they make movies and and how hard it is to pull off these one shots, and there's a lot of things going on in this, I was like, oh, that's a moment that I will rewatch when I own this film because of the technical and the performance of the people involved in it.
Better or worse than his previous film, Seven Psychopaths?
I remember liking that movie, but I don't remember anything about that movie. And I want to rewatch it because it's available on Amazon Prime. I think it's available on Amazon Prime or Hulu, one of the ones. But I really want to rewatch it because it's kind of made me fall in love with Sam Rockwell again. Because who doesn't love Sam Rockwell? And so. Yeah, I mean, 3 Billboards. I really thought it was kind of a phenomenal movie. All the performances in it are out of bounds. They're something else. I think it's a really, really interesting, just really ballsy, bold movie. I also real quick watched 2 movies at home.
Whoa.
Both involving real world real events. One of them was Only the Brave that came out last year. That movie is phenomenal.
The Miles Teller film?
Yeah. Oh my God. The Granite Mountain Fire. The Granite Mountain Hot
That's
Shots.
Right. It stars your dad.
Yeah. Yeah. With the goatee, full on goatee. It is very powerful. I didn't know much about unfortunately I didn't know much about the
trailers. I feel like didn't do it justice.
No, not at all. And yeah.
Oh, that's the one where he's trying to readjust to home life.
No, that was Thank You for Your Service.
Oh,
this is about the
okay.
firefighters.
I'm okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, he did do that. Yeah.
The whole time you've been talking, I've been trying to.
Came out at the same time.
But that was also Miles.
Miles Teller.
Yeah,
Mhm.
okay.
Um,
So at least I'm not completely crazy.
you're on par for Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the movie
Really,
where
we're all a little crazy.
that was
Yeah.
that was the movie where he and those three other guys traveled to a different dimension. They all got superpowers
Mhm.
that you loved.
Yes. Yeah. Fantastic.
Honest Creed was there.
Yeah. That one shot in the hallway is the greatest shot in film history. But yeah, it is.
Sorry to derail you.
It's okay. It's a really emotional film, and like I said, it's something that I think once I finished the movie, I read up on it, and I think it's a movie you guys should check out and see. It's pretty powerful stuff. And then I also watched last night Deepwater Horizon with Mark Wahlberg. Holy shit, that movie is how anybody survived that is it's amazing. Yeah. I mean, like our friend Corey, who's been on the show a couple times, she had recommended it, like, hey, I watched this recently. It's really kind of powerful, crazy stuff. And so I was like, oh, okay. Again, this was on I think the HBO, like through Hulu or whatever. So I was like, oh, I'll check this to watch it. Like it's got Kurt Russell with great facial hair, of course. Got Mark Wahlberg. It's what's his name, Peter Berg.
Yes.
Who's done a lot of like the real life stuff, like Lone Survivor, really powerful stuff.
The Kingdom, Friday Night Lights, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Friday Night Lights, yeah, exactly. That kind of seems to be his thing, like dealing with like real life. Did he also do Patriots Day?
Yeah, and he also did Hancock.
Oh, he did Hancock? Really? Oh shit! Which is not
so.
well,
No, yeah, real life,
real life.
Yeah. But it's that's probably the weirdest thing he's done.
But yeah, I really like Patriots Day as well.
Another Wahlberg joint.
Yeah. They seem to work well together. Anyway, yeah, it is another thing to read about, afterwards, and the amazing the will to live is so strong, and that that these guys went through on this on the Deepwater Horizon.
How's John Malkovich?
He doesn't have his voice. He has a southern accent, so it's really the most like un-John Malkovich. He's good in it, but like he doesn't have that voice. He has a southern accent the whole time.
The most Malkovich.
Yeah,
Malkovich.
But yeah, I don't know. I was like on this like kind of like journey of like watching these like real like life events. Historical dramas. Thank you. And those two just like are amazing tragedies and amazing stories of like what people go through like in these horrible events. Like it's something else, man. Yeah. So check all three of those out.
I also saw a movie in the cinema that was
pull the Sam Stone.
That was also based on true events, but mine with heavy air quotes for those of you that can't hear me doing my air quotes.
We can hear them.
I saw the film Winchester.
Oh yeah, heavy air quotes.
Yeah. Based around the ever continuing construction of the Winchester Mansion, from the widow of I don't remember their name beyond Winchester, of course, but the widow of the Winchester rifle or repeating company, whatever.
Rifle that won the West.
Yeah, the man who basically created the Winchester. He dies, and his widow is haunted by ghosts of all the people who have died by the Winchester rifle, and a medium convinces her that in order to not be tormented for the rest of her life, she has to build a house to appease all of the spirits, and because there's so many, they're just constantly building new things, and it's ridiculous. There's staircases that lead nowhere. There's rooms that don't make sense. There's doors that just open up to air. The movie chose a very weird, a very
unorthodox,
story to tell, because like there's plenty of story there that would make for an interesting movie. They chose to make it like a Ghostbusters kind of story, where I don't recall this. I listened to several like spooky podcasts that have talked about the Winchester Mansion. I've never heard this aspect of the story, so I'm assuming that it was just completely made up for the movie. But in the movie Winchester, it posits that Helen Mirren, which check, plus on that, because she's amazing and she's great in the movie. She's oddly enough, she's the best part about the movie. She is building rooms that are based on the rooms that the spirits died in, and then she's able to trap the spirits in that room and help them work through whatever their damage is so they can move on to the next side.
And this is a real movie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw it with my movie pass.
My eyes.
Yes. Yeah. I saw it with my eyes. But yeah, so she and then if she can't help them work it out, she nails that door shut. But when she does help them work it out, she destroys that room and starts building a new one based on a based on like a medium trance that she goes into, where she like just blindly draws on a piece of paper and with her spiritual architectural skills designs the room that the person died in.
This is a real movie.
This is a real movie,
okay.
Starring Helen Mirren.
No, I've seen
Helen
a
Mirren.
trailer or something for him. Yeah.
She's also in Red 2, so...
Yeah.
With John Malkovich, right?
And yeah.
He was in one of them.
He's in both.
Is he in both? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if he
The
like
first
died or
one's
something.
his first one's pretty good.
Isn't it based off of a graphic
book.
novel or a comic book?
By Cully Hamner and Andy Diggle.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
I enjoyed both of them.
I never saw him.
The first one, I will agree, is definitely the higher quality, but they're both fun summer popcorn movies.
Fair.
Full of action and a lack of physics.
Well, the first one's got Carl Urban.
Oh,
yeah.
sweet.
So,
but yeah, and then the main protagonist that it actually follows is the psychiatrist who is evaluating her to
Who plays the psychiatrist?
I do not recall his name. He was a guy that I was like, this guy's familiar,
Jason
but I can't
Clarke.
put my finger on
Oh,
why
really?
I know him.
He's from like Rise of the Planet of the Apes. He's in Terminator Genesis.
He's good.
He's
good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have seen him. I was just like, maybe it was the beard. The beard threw it off because I don't know.
Nobody's judging you.
I'm just explaining. I don't feel judged until now when you yell at me like that.
I clearly have to have a ghost room where I work my stuff out.
I've wanted to make a padded room where I can just run into the walls or throw things against the walls and not worry about making.
Bruce Spence is in it. The guy from the gyro captain.
Oh, Mr. Teeth.
In Road Warrior.
Yes. That was another one that I was like, I fucking know who this guy
still
is.
have the teeth?
No.
And he's also he's also in Beyond Thunderdome, but it's a totally different character.
Yeah, he's the train driver or whatever.
I don't remember.
Yeah, okay.
I don't care.
It's the same actor, but it's a different role.
Yeah.
It's just
It's one of those anthology movies where they can have that. It's like American Horror Story. But yeah, so it's following the psychologist evaluating her to see if she's fit to retain the majority share of the Winchester Company. And that's fine. That I was really hoping the first half of the movie, it almost teases like they're gonna go, oh, is it all just psychological and this is the way that she's dealing with grief, and then the psychologist is also dealing with his own grief and then stuff, and then but it never pulls the trigger on that, and then it just goes straight ghost story, which I also enjoy a straight ghost story, but I'm like, when you're setting up the story, can you have something in mind? Kind
of speaks of maybe some behind the scenes, like reworking.
Could have been too many cooks,
or
not enough cooks.
January, February releases, minus Black Panther, hopefully.
Yeah,
always kind of have that feel to them.
Mm-hmm. Or Deadpool from a couple years ago.
Yeah. But I mean, Founder, I feel like was too many cooks, and that was a January wide release, and I don't know, it's just dumping ground season, man.
But overall, I would say that I felt that Winchester was fine. I didn't feel like I wasted my money on it, but I also wouldn't go out and be like, guys, you gotta see it.
You would not own it
No.
necessarily.
No,
at least not at full price.
I wouldn't even Sam Stone hate own it.
I do circle the Founder Every time it's on sale, just I could do this.
I could do this to myself.
Yeah. It's on Netflix too. There's been moments where I'm scrolling and I'm just like, it's there.
I could just watch that scene of him running through the golf course, pulling up his pants.
Yeah, you call this lettuce? What is this?
Yeah. How about you, Sam? You get anything? You see any movies or?
I bought Justice League and I watched
Same.
Yeah, I watched the.
I didn't even buy it. Wow.
Well, it's on. It's on. Vudu.
It's only digital
that's
right
right.
now.
It's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
physical.
Yeah, you guys and your digital movies.
Yeah, man. Got to reduce that clutter. Sorry, I was trying to.
I don't know why that made me
I was trying to abbreviate.
I was
that.
like, time just froze for a second, and I was the only one still able to move.
Yeah, you need to dust me off, guys. I'm starting to skip.
It's like that scene in The Office, the Kabanga.
Yeah. I watched like all the Superman stuff like multiple times, and that's really it.
Yeah.
And
Did you sit there and frame by frame analyze the mustache?
I don't have to.
It's just like, oh, that's clearly the scene. That was a
Yeah.
reshoot. What neither of us have done, and I'm sad for both of us, is send each other the picture of surprised fat Ben Affleck, not fat Ben Affleck, but Batfleck. I meant to say,
Yeah, certainly not
not in
shape.
Ben Affleck.
Yeah.
Definitely, I'm fat Affleck compared to him in that movie, but like, his look of like, Superman, that look is the best.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, it's a tough movie. Like, I remember I bought it. I was like, oh, that's right, it's available. Fuck yeah! And then I bought it, and I was just like, I don't want to watch this. Like, sure, I'm gonna watch Superman stuff, and I really enjoy. Oh shit! What was I gonna say? I guess I don't know anything. I was trying to
Momoa, Gal Gadot.
I do, but I was trying to think of a scene that has nothing to do with Superman, and I was like, I can't think of one.
I like Wonder Woman's entrance.
The Atlantis?
Yeah, but I mean, like,
Yeah.
that's that part was cool, but most of that's in the trailer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Aside from her like doing like the slide with like the bulletproof bracelets or whatever.
Basically referencing Nicola Scott.
There's there is a deleted scene where Superman goes to see Alfred.
Yeah,
And-
which they had in the trailer. They teased in the
Yeah.
trailer.
And he, because there was a guy, there's like a Batman.com or Batman News thing that I follow on Twitter, and he was, I guess, one of the first guys to see it, or something. Who fucking
lucky
knows?
him.
And he was talking about how, like, it's in there, and he refers to him as Mr. Kent, and he's like, watching the mustache scenes in 4K does not help.
I have it in Ultra HD.
So ever,
Yeah.
Jesus.
Laser disc.
This movie would have benefited from that because
Even Betamax.
Christ.
Yeah. Almighty. I also started playing Assassin's Creed 3 for the first time.
Oh.
Like, I've had Assassin's 3 Creed.
Assassin's 3 Creed.
Yeah. Dust me off, guys. I'm skipping. Assassin's Creed 3 I've had for years. That game came out in 2011, by the way. And no, this is the first time I actually played it. And I was like, this is...
Is that PS3 then?
Yes, it was the last one exclusive to the PS3. 4 came out for PS3, but then they also released it for PS4 and Xbox One and all that. But no, it's fine. I like the American Revolution setting. It's, okay. It's better than Assassin's Creed Revelations. I'm already willing to make that assertion, and I'm not even through the prologue yet.
Wait, are you playing on your PS4?
No, PS4 still in the box.
What the fuck are you doing?
Playing on my PS3.
Yeah. PS4 isn't completely backwards compatible. It's not like the Xbox.
So now you have time to play a video game,
Yes.
and you choose not to use it for PlayStation 4.
You had time now.
All the time in the world. But I've had Assassin's Creed 3 for years.
Yeah, but now you have time to play a video game, which has been your excuse for not playing PlayStation 4, and no PlayStation 4.
Do you yet have a PS4 game, though?
I have 2.
Okay.
See, there's no help.
I couldn't.
I knew Chris was going to try to swing to your rescue,
Yeah.
but there's no help.
I couldn't
can't.
remember. I couldn't remember
No,
if
no,
you
no,
had
no, no.
mentioned.
I can't reach that buoy.
No. No.
I've lifted it up too
that
high.
life preserver. And he's just like, here you go, bud. And I'm just like, dude, I'm like 3 football
Here.
fields away.
Here, have a lifesaver.
Yeah.
It's watermelon. I don't like it.
Oh yeah, deep cut.
Boom.
Butterscotch.
Do they have
Butter-
Scotch?
Scotch.
Lifesavers?
But they're
Scotch.
Scotch. But they're not with the main fruit ones. You have to
Gotcha.
get those.
I was about
Hey,
to say,
let's talk-
butterscotch is not a fruit that I know.
Let's talk about
butterscotch tree.
because we're about to see Black Panther.
Yes.
and I think we're all very excited.
Yes.
I remember when that first trailer came out.
I've been listening to a lot of Vince Staples, getting my body ready.
Okay. I remember that first trailer came out. I was like jokingly saying it was my second favorite movie of 2017 because that first trailer was fucking insanity.
Set to Vince Staples.
The first one? It's no, the first one's Run the Jewels.
Oh, second one's Bog Bok by.
But yeah, the first one's Run the Jewels, and I was like, oh shit. But yeah, all the trailers. I mean, I eventually stopped watching the trailers like after like the first 2 or 3 big ones, and all the TV spots are coming in, and I was like, oh, stop. Yeah. But I loved like the look. And there's that one. Was it a Super Bowl commercial where it's like, are they driving Lexuses or whatever?
Yeah, it's more of a Lexus.
That's
commercial.
actually like a great commercial for Black Panther. Like it just looks like fun, and like the suit is just. He was. I mean, like we all, I think, are in agreement that he was the best part of Civil War. Like he was
every time he's on the
was
screen,
the least,
he certainly
like,
steals the
he steals
show.
the show.
Yeah.
Because he is like his armor in the movie. His like criticism is impenetrable in Civil War because everything he does is so fucking badass. Like the triple kick or whatever, when he catches the double the explosive arrows and it just kind of flinches for like barely a second.
Here's my thing: Hawkeye just met him. Did Hawkeye know that he wouldn't be affected by explosive arrows?
See, no, but then he says something in Black Panther's like, I don't care.
And he's like, I don't think we've met, by the way. My name's Clint.
He's like, I don't care.
Yeah.
And I was like, good. Fuck Clint. There's only one Clint.
Clint.
I even that behind the scenes clip of Black Panther and Captain America jumping down.
Oh yeah.
Where you just see him like do a little like toe kick.
Yeah.
Like even that is wonderful. Like you'd think it would be like anyone else, like it'd be silly to watch him do a little like inkball chain or whatever the hell it is.
I think his the claws are
cool.
actually like that's a real effect, like retractable claws and stuff like that. And it's Ryan Coogler. That's the thing that's like, I mean, that dude's the best.
To get ready for the movie, I watched both of Ryan Coogler's theatrically released. I was about to say all of them. It's like there's 2.
Yeah.
I've seen Creed, and I watched Fruitvale Station.
Oh yeah,
very different movies.
Yes.
Which I'm sure this one will be too.
Yes, but
with Michael B. Jordan, who, from what I hear, does like the
he's like the new like Marvel villain that everyone is like, fuck yeah.
He has got a great look.
Oh yeah,
I love it.
Good.
I mean, everything's got a great look that we've seen so far in this movie.
All due respect to Tom Hiddleston, but I could use for a little variety.
Yes,
Yeah.
like I said, as of right now, my favorite Marvel villain, big or small screen, is still Ben Barnes from Punisher.
Okay. I also do I don't know if you guys at home have noticed, I'm doing the quiet loud thing today.
Oh, I mean that's been for fucking 700 episodes. Is it 700? Feels like 700.
This is 190.
Is it? Oh, Jesus.
But we've done other shows.
Yeah.
If you combine all of it,
I think
probably.
I think YouTube gives me a count of how many videos I've uploaded. We're getting close to. We're definitely past 500. I think we're getting close to 600.
That's so stupid.
It's because we have 20 different sub shows.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that might actually be an accurate number. 20 shows.
I've got a story about the Kiss stuff. I'll tell you off mic.
Yeah.
It's at least 15 different mini separate shows.
I've had 4. I've got 2 running right now.
Yeah.
You've had Laserdiscs. You've got the
Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street,
GCW.
I
think that's
the short-lived Saturday morning cartoons.
Well, that was
if
Ken's
that
joint.
counts.
Yeah, because we were all kind of. Though you were a co-host.
Yeah.
Josh had Resident Evil. You've got
4. I think it was the Lethal Weapon, Kiss, Superman, and Robo.
Mm-hmm. There was the Indiana Jones one.
Oh yeah, that was part of it was mine is Beatles, Bond, indie, video games.
Yeah. So we've all had at least 4 between us.
Yeah. Damn it. So anyway, thanks again. Jim Zub is now. I mean, he's our MVP.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a resounding
mic drop.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah.
There's nothing left to
that
say.
was the exclamation point to that statement.
Yeah. And thanks again to Djibril for coming on as well. Their new book's out February 28th. This has been another installment of Catching Up. I'm Sam.
I'm Chris.
I'm Jake.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good night, Eric Bana.
This has been another Geek Out production. If you enjoyed what you heard, hey, we've got a special episode every Friday. Of course, there's the usual catching up show every Wednesday, and you get book club episodes just about every Tuesday these days. Thanks for listening.